You know, when we think about Greek mythology, it's easy to just picture gods throwing lightning bolts and epic monsters. But it's so much more than that. It's really a blueprint for an entire worldview. One built on these incredible cosmic power struggles, raw human ambition, and this powerful idea of inescapable fate.
So, how did the ancient Greeks see their world? Well, we can break it down into 4 key themes. We're going to start with the violent birth of their universe, then look at the incredibly high price of ambition, jump into the stories of heroes and their destinies, and finally, wrap it all up with the moral code that governed, well, everything.
All right, first up, the creation of everything. And let me tell you, this was not a peaceful, quiet affair. It was a brutal, cyclical fight for power that literally started from a void. So, picture this. Not just nothing, but chaos, a huge gaping void. And out of this emptiness, the very first powers start to wake up. You have Gaia, the earth, Eros, which is the force of love, and Tartarus, the deepest, darkest pit. This is the raw material for the entire universe.
Now, as you look at this timeline, a really brutal pattern starts to emerge, right? It kicks off with Uranus, a terrible father who gets overthrown by his son, Cronus. But then Cronus, totally paranoid about a prophecy that says the same thing will happen to him, starts swallowing his own kids. It's this non-stop cycle of fear and rebellion, son against father, until finally Zeus shows up and breaks the chain. And this is the main takeaway here. The entire Greek mythological universe is built on this foundation of violent rebellion. Yeah, the Olympians end up on top, but they got there through a brutal war. And that legacy of conflict, that deep-seated fear, it never really goes away.
And that same tension, that same struggle for power totally extends to the relationship between the gods and us mortals. So let's talk about that super dangerous line between divine power and human ambition, what the Greeks famously called hubris.
Okay, so our main character for this part is Prometheus. Now, he was a Titan, but he actually sided with Zeus during the big war. The thing is, his real loyalty, it was with his own creation, us, humanity. He saw something in us, a spark that maybe even the gods overlooked.
This whole sequence is just a masterclass in consequences. Prometheus has one single moment of ambition, giving fire to mankind. And his reward? He's chained to a rock for eternity. And what about us? Well, Zeus's punishment for humanity was Pandora and her box, which unleashed every single evil you can imagine into the world. All that for one gift. But here's the really cruel twist. Hope wasn't some kind of consolation prize. A lot of people see this as Zeus's most twisted move, giving us just enough hope to make sure we'd keep going, that we'd endure all the suffering he just released, instead of just giving up.
So, where do the great heroes fit into all this? I mean, how do you live under this kind of divine rule? Well, they pretty much walked 2 different paths, and each one was defined by a massive burden. One was the burden of prophecy, and the other, the burden of sin.
And right here, you can see the 2 classic heroic journeys. You've got Perseus on one side, basically running from a future that's already been written for him. And on the other, you have Heracles, who's trying to outrun his own past. One is haunted by what will be, the other by what has been.
The story of Perseus kicks off even before he's born, all because of this one terrifying prophecy. His grandfather, King Acrisius, does everything he can to stop it. He even locks his own daughter away. But you can't stop the gods. Perseus is born, and Acrisius, in a final desperate act, casts them both out to sea.
And you just know how this is going to end, right? Years later, after all his adventures, Perseus is competing in some athletic games. He throws a discus, it goes way off course, and hits some old guy in the crowd, killing him. And who was that old guy? You guessed it, his grandfather, Acrisius. You just can't cheat fate.
Now let's switch over to Heracles. See, his story isn't about escaping the future. It's about paying for the past. Hera, Zeus's wife, absolutely hated Heracles. And in a fit of pure jealous rage, she cursed him with this temporary madness. And in that state, he killed his own family.
So, to wash away this awful, awful crime, Heracles was given a path to redemption. He had to go serve his cousin and complete 12 labors. And these weren't just difficult, they were designed to be impossible. Each one was a test, a way to purify his soul.
And we're not talking about your average chores here. These tasks were absolutely legendary. I mean, they were meant to break him. But by facing down everything from a lion with skin you couldn't pierce to the actual guard dog of the underworld, Heracles was trying to atone for a sin that really was never his fault to begin with. Okay, so let's zoom out again. From the creation of the universe to the lives of heroes. What we're seeing is a world governed by a super strict set of rules. And these rules apply to every single person, from the moment they were born to their final judgment after death. You see, for the Greeks, life wasn't really a blank canvas. The 3 fates decided all the big stuff and the exact length of your life before you were even born. You had Clotho, who spun the thread of your life, Lachesis, who measured it out, and then Atropos, she was the one who made the final cut.
And when that thread was cut, your journey was far from over. Your soul would be guided by the god Hermes down to the river Styx, where you had to pay a ferryman to get across. Then you had to sneak past a three-headed dog, Cerberus, only to stand before three judges who were going to review every single thing you ever did in your life.
And this table basically shows you the outcome of that judgment. Your actions in life determined your eternal destination. If you were a hero or just a really good person, you went to Elysium, eternal paradise. Most average people, they went to the fields of Asphodel, a kind of neutral zone. But if you were wicked, you were headed straight for Tartarus.
And the punishments in Tartarus weren't just random acts of cruelty. Oh no, they were specifically designed to fit the crime. Tantalus, who tried to trick the gods, is forever tempted by food and water he can never have. Sisyphus, who cheated death, has to perform a pointless, agonizing task for all eternity. The message couldn't be clearer. You mess with the cosmic order, you pay the price forever.
So that leaves us with this one big, final question. In a world where your destiny is literally mapped out for you, and where cosmic justice is absolute, what does it even mean to be a hero? Is it about whether you win or lose? Or is it about how you fight, how you struggle, even when you know the whole system is rigged against you? That, right there, is the question at the very heart of Greek mythology.